I've had a lot of conversations with educators over the years and people that I've hired and employees that have worked for me around the kind of impact that we want to have. And I think that this two by two framework really helps people understand the kind of impact that we can have as an organization, as a leader, as a product and service offering. And so the first is reach, right? The reach that you want to have, the breadth of impact, the number of people, the number of students, the number of educators. Is it one school or is it 100 schools? Is it one student or is it a million students? Right. So reach is a form of impact. And so you can think about, like, as an educator, do you want to have impact on one student or do you want to have impact on millions of students like Khan Academy and Sal Khan, right? So that's a way of thinking about it. The other is depth of impact, right? You could have really meaningful, incredible impact on one person, one student, one school, and just transform the way they do things. And that's very gratifying in itself. Or you could have impact, light impact or influence on many people. Like, you wrote a book and it changed the habit, but you sold 10 million copies. And so great, that has a certain kind of impact on people. Or you want to have deep impact across a large number of people, which is harder, but like something like Facebook or YouTube, these kinds of tools, Netflix, changed the way we behave on a regular basis. And so that had really substantial and deep impact on a lot of people like that. So as you think about the kind of impact, look at where you are today and where you envision you'd like to be, because that's going to give you a path to how you want to grow your business. Over the years, I've come up with different ways that I measure my impact in the industry and the customers I serve. And I wanted to share those with you as examples, and you'll hear examples from Kauai as well. So the first is, I look at the number of people who can take my concepts and work and run with it. So an example of that is my book, The New School Rules. It still has a lot of impact today because I hear from people that they're using the book to change the way they meet or run projects, and that's transferring to other people on their teams that I don't have any interaction with. So the number of people that could take the concepts that I develop and run with it on their own without my help, and they are multiplying that effect to the people that they work with, is something that I like to look at as a way to measure my impact. Another thing that I look at is what I call transferability from project to project. Just like transferring learning, this is the transferability of the concepts that, and kind of the evolution of these concepts. And so um, a way to look at this is, if I work with a client and I teach them a different way of using something or doing something. For example, maybe I show them how to use AI tools to do analytics faster. And as a result, for their next project on their own, they're able to take that and utilize it on the next project. They're transferring the knowledge that I was able to provide to them and the expertise I was able to provide to them to apply it to something, a different condition. And that's something that I also enjoy measuring to see if the impact I have has transferability. And then the last way is really the kind of the ROI that the client might experience and how that has a multiplier effect into other districts that I don't work with. And here's an example. I was working with a client who was an assistant superintendent at one district. A few years later, she reached out to me saying that she became superintendent and has been taking the practices that she learned from me to the new client, the new district that she's in as superintendent. And so in her position of power and in leadership role, she's able to kind of drive the things that she learned, and the ROI on that was kind of multiplied not only at the first district that she was, because she experienced a benefit from the work we did, but she's also able to even generate more ROI on that one experience because she's able to take it to a completely different condition and run it on her own. So that's what I like to look at, just the ability for these concepts that I've been developing and evolving over time. Can that spread? And is it giving them the expected outcome that I hope it gives them?
So, how I measure impact is a hard thing for me to answer sometimes because when you do consulting work that I do, focused on leadership, culture, and strategy, I think impact can be hard to quantify, right? It's rarely, I think, about kind of the numbers or immediate outcomes. And I think for me, impact shows up in different ways that people work and lead differently after we've worked together. So one of the first things I look for is I look for signs of behavior change. Are there new habits that leaders and teams are building after I've worked with them? Are they making bold? Are they having more courageous conversations as a team? Are they communicating more honestly and with more clarity? Is there more alignment and trust around the table? Again, these are things sometimes that are hard to measure, but it's like when you see it, you know that it's there, right? But I think these shifts and behavior changes are what's really the most telling for me when I check back in with the team, if I've really made an impact or not. The second thing I also pay attention to is whether the work lasts, right? If they're continuing to use the tools and the frameworks that I've shared, especially the language that we've developed together. When a client says, well, we asked ourselves one of your questions during our last planning session, I think that's impact to me. Of course, a really one that I can quantify is referrals, extensions, retention of clients, right? I think if a client re-engages me for another project or recommends me to someone else in their network, it tells me that the work had value and staying power, and that kind of trust is earned. And then finally, I think impact can also show up in the confidence of leaders. Again, hard to measure, but I think you can tell when a leader stops second guessing themselves as much, or a leader or a team and a leader starts tackling hard conversations instead of avoiding them. And it may not be visible, on a dashboard or some sort of fancy way to quantify it, but those moments really do change, I think, an organization, a school. And that's what I'm hoping I am creating when I am working with my schools and organizations.
So now it's your turn. I want you to spend some time determining what your target margin is and understanding where you are now and how to get to where you need to be. And then also using the two by two to measure the kind of impact you're having now and the kind of impact you want to have going forward. Then use that information to update your lean canvas.